If y'all like crafts like I do, make sure to use the search bar, type in crafts, and it'll bring up all of my craft videos for you to watch. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Tobacco Leaf Legacies. This is Cheryl, and this is Jonesy. As I was getting the video ready, she wanted to come up and say hello. You say hello to everybody? Yeah, she's my little shadow girl, for sure. Anyway, and welcome back to Celebrate Crafts. It has been a hot minute since I have done a craft video. I just had so much other things going on and other videos that I was working on. So I thought I would put together some fun things for this one. I just love getting to my little craft projects in general. Y'all have seen my videos, you know everything that I have had going on the last number of years. And I have not been able to do as much as I would like to do, or as much as I even normally have done in years past. So it was fun to sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna do another one. Initially, I thought with the holidays that are out right now, okay, I'll do something for Valentine's, something for St. Patrick's Day, something for Easter, you know, that. And as I started going through my stash of craft goodies and also looking at some things that I had sitting around. If you're a crafter, you know how that is. You've got projects sitting around that it takes you a while to get to. Okay, so I had some like that. So I thought, well, maybe let me not force myself to focus on these three specific ones, but let me see what else I've got sitting around that I can work on and finally finish. All right, so let me show you what I made. So this first one is really pretty cute and pretty simple. I found the frame at Hobby Lobby, I think, on clearance, and it was so nice and it was so perfect for what I needed. You can see where I'm pointing here. It just had some little dings on it that were not a big deal. I used some of the wood filler here to fill those in, sanded it later, made sure it was all nice and smooth, and then the spray paint, that's all I used. I took it outside and gave it a quick coat of paint. And here, because I was using this to hold pictures from my 50th, we'll call it 50th birthday party, but it was just a gathering of some of my friends in the mountains, I wanted to add the gold as a nod to our 50th. So once I had spray painted everything black, while it was still wet, I took the sprinkles and just sprinkled over all of it and then let that dry. Anytime, if you run across frames, here are the pictures that I'm going to be putting in there. When you run across frames, if they're a little dinged up or if the color's wrong or something like that, don't be afraid to get them, because a little wood filler and a little paint goes a long way to make these frames just as pretty as when they were initially on sale. And just like that, this one is done. I'll tell you how this started. You see this cute little planter right here? I picked that up at a thrift store. I saw it, it was in perfect condition, and I thought, oh, I have to do something with this. This is too cute. These flowers right here, I just got at Dollar Tree. Same with this little foam piece. The easiest thing I found to do is to take these foam pieces and to cut them down, and I kind of rounded off the corners a little bit and then glued it down into the planter. It just makes it so much easier to be able to keep the flower pieces in the right place. And I did let that dry for a bit too, just to make sure that it was secure when I started putting these flowers in there. And I didn't just put them in as they were. I'm clipping it here with the tin snips because it's a lot easier when you're working with these arrangements to get all of these pieces individual, and then it makes it easier to style it with where you want the flowers. That way you don't have just one group of color here and, you know, there on the other side. You can mix and match as you want to. So this part, of course, is the fun part. You just take all the different little pieces and stick it in the foam in whatever way that you want it. This purple moss right here, I actually picked this up at Michael's on one of their spring clearances, and I just loved it. I love the color. Didn't know what I was going to do with it, but when I started working on this, of course, it needs something on top of the foam so that that doesn't show, you know, under the flowers. And I remembered that, and I thought, oh, that is going to be perfect in here. Now this is something that not everybody may be familiar with. I don't know if you remember back in the probably 80s or 90s, these little wacky packages where they took an actual product and then kind of changed the name of it to make it just a little weird, little twisted. Anyway, I liked them and I thought they were very cool, and so you can find these things now. So I had a bunch of them you see over here on the right. There's actually a few that are the actual name. They have these like mini brand things that you can get at, like, you know, Target and other places, and they were just so cute. I wanted a little display piece. So the little Stay Clever little fox thing here, I just picked that up at Dollar Tree. There was a little fox in there, took him out, and I knew what I was going to do for the shelves. You can see it up in the corner. So I wanted to kind of make that match. And I took some stain and just went around the piece that I got from Dollar Tree. I wanted it to almost look like, I had in mind like a little store shelf kind of thing. That's what I was envisioning. So I had this paper left over from another project, and so I just cut it and fit it inside. The material was material that my dad actually had from when he was doing crafts years ago, but I thought that it would be perfect for this. So I went through that material and cut strips of it so that I could put it around on the inside. These little pieces right here are actually from Dollar Tree. They're like Jenga blocks. I think they call them something else because they can't use that name. But I thought, well, they were going to be perfect to glue on here and use as a little shelf for these items. Now, you see me cutting here. You can cut them. It just takes a second to work with them. But I did have to cut that last one just to be able to fill up the space perfectly to make the little shelves. I used the Mod Podge here, putting on the wood in order to keep secure, I should say, the material around the edge. And once that was done, then I could go back to these little block pieces and start gluing them down to make my shelves. Now to secure these little pieces, because they're so little, I knew that they would be falling off left and right if I just left them like this, especially if I want to hang this piece. So I thought, well, let me secure these somehow. And so what I'm using is just basically glue dots. Put it on the back, stick them in, and then they are very secure in place. You know me and my love of South of the Border, as you have seen in some of my previous videos. I am finally on the hat, y'all. You don't understand. I have been driving by this place since I was tiny. I think I probably said that like in another part of a video. And if I came up here when I was little, I don't remember it. You know, I was so little that I don't remember it. So when I saw this witch hat in Dollar Tree, I immediately saw the South of the Border sombrero, and I thought, okay, I have to do this. I just have to do this hat, right? So I used this primer and of course spray painted all the hat. Now, if you ever do anything like this with plastic, this is something I didn't do and I should have. You really want to kind of rough up the plastic a little bit just so that the paint sticks better. Even though I put the white on here and then I went back with this perfect yellow color and put that on there as well, if I hit it, it's still going to scratch. So probably something for me to keep in mind for future projects. But I traced out these little triangles for the design that's on the hat. This roll of vinyl right here, I also got from Dollar Tree. And I thought initially, I think that I was planning on painting these things, and as I got into the project, I just thought there is no way that I'm going to be able to paint all of these triangles, you know, and designs that I need on this. So why don't I just make myself a little template? There were kind of two different shapes of the triangles, and let me just cut it out on this vinyl sticker paper, and then that was going to work so much better. Once I got all this traced out, it was just a matter of cutting it so that I had my individual little triangle pieces, and then I could start sticking them on. Yes, I will admit, cutting all these little triangles and things was just a little bit tedious, but it made the final project just look so much better than me painting it by hand ever could have looked. The nice thing about using this vinyl paper for projects like this is that it's very easy to move. So if you kind of mess it up a little bit and need to move it to put it in a different spot, it's really easy to do so, and it's not going to mess up the paint. Then this triangle is for the bottom part that goes around the bottom of the hat. It's a slightly different shaped triangle, so I had to cut out a second one, but the process was exactly the same. I just traced it out on the vinyl sticker paper here, cut them out individually, and then placed them on the hat. This painting part, I will admit, made me very nervous. There was no way, because of the shape of the hat, that I could get blue vinyl like I had in the red. And to go around here, it just would not have looked quite as nice. And so I had a blue color that matched perfectly, and I thought, let me just be brave. Let me just be brave and paint this on. And I did, and I was actually really happy and a little relieved with how it turned out. I'd say that's a pretty close replica, don't you think? All right, I will admit I have had the material to do this wreath for well over a year, and it just took me forever to get to it. Most of what you see here, I got at Dollar Tree. Now, the circle part, I believe I got that on Amazon just because I needed a particular size. And I had the bright idea, because I've seen people cut these and make wreaths and tape them together. And I did tape it together, but I just thought, why don't I put this inside just to make sure that it holds its shape correctly. So once you get it in there and get that to the edge, you just cut off the excess on the end, and then that way you can put the end pieces together and secure them back like they were. Once that's done, you are going to have a little gap there in the middle, but then it was easy just to cut an extra piece of the foam that I had and slide it right on. With these pieces, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it initially. I had tried kind of wrapping it around and stuff, but the way it hung, it didn't look right. And I think that was a piece of garland I probably got at Michael's on clearance from like last spring. But then when I started looking at the pieces, I was like, well, these pieces are just tied on to the twine. So maybe I'll take them off, wrap them around, and then tie them on this way. And it looked, as soon as I started doing it, I just thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need to do. Made sure to lay out all my pieces here to make sure that I had enough to cover it. And then I just went back to wrapping these around, overlapping them just a tiny bit, and then tying them on. You could secure this in the back with some hot glue if you wanted to, but I tied them tight enough and they didn't seem like they were loosening up at all. So I just tied them and left them alone. Next were these cute bunnies. I got these at Dollar Tree. I didn't need the bottom part, I just needed the heads. So I took the tin snips here and started cutting. This, I believe this is like MDF board material, and so it's really easy to cut through. Same with Mr. Bunny here. All I needed was his little head, and so we just used the tin snips to get rid of everything else. Now I started taking the original ribbon that they had on them. I used a different ribbon that I also got at Dollar Tree, little gingham print, so that it would match the pieces that I wrapped around the pool noodle. And I gave each one of them, I gave her a little bow and I gave him a little tie. Some of it too was covering up where the MDF part maybe had torn a little bit. The holes up at the top, I could have filled those with the wood filler and kind of sanded it and painted it, but then I thought, why don't I do something else? I've got the ribbons here, I'm going to use that anyway. So for her, I just gave her a little bow, and for him, I decided to make a little hat. Now with her, I needed something kind of at her neck there, and I wasn't sure what to do. And then I thought, well, you know, I could take a piece of the material, and what I'm doing is folding it and gluing it, and then folding another piece over so that I could make her a little kind of little ruffles like it was the top of her dress. Once they were ready, I just took hot glue and glued them on to the pool noodle. And I have to say, when you're working with materials like this, the hot glue works so well. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing, hot glue can peel off easily. You know, if you're trying to do something with glass, it isn't always your friend. But materials like this, the hot glue was perfect. Now I had these eggs and other little pieces, and what I did with the eggs, because they were actually ornaments, and so I just cut off the top of the ribbon and then hot glued them onto the pool noodle. And again, pretty much everything here was from Dollar Tree. All of the colors and the designs and the gingham and everything, it all just came together so perfectly that this is probably my favorite wreath that I've ever made. And we can't have bunnies without carrots, right? Okay, so this one came about by necessity. You see these cute little pieces? I was at Costco over the holidays and they had a Christmas Story set, and it was a set where you open it up every day and you got a new little character. So once the season was over, I just thought, well, what are we going to do with all these little things? I didn't want to keep the box. I decided that I wanted to make something kind of cute. So back to Dollar Tree I go. And I thought, well, I'll try to make a cute little display house. Like, this will work. So all of these pieces here, I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I decided to paint them as close to the color of the Christmas Story house that I could. Once I was done with the yellow for the outside, I wanted to use the green that they have on the house as well, and so I thought it would be cute to put the green on the front of these little boxes to make them stand out. Once they were all ready, then I just used hot glue to attach them to each other and build the house. Once that was all ready, it was time to work on the roof. These two pieces right here I picked up at Dollar Tree just as they are. I knew that they would make the perfect roof. I knew I would need to cut them a little bit too. So I took the wood glue to secure these two to each other first. Then once that was dry, I took more of the wood filler just to fill in the cracks here and make it look a little smoother. This is the finished roof. Here is where I was actually fighting being sick, and so I missed doing some of the video as I usually would have done. The piece on the back was just an extra piece of wood that I had that I cut down to fill in on the back side. I printed this out. I just got a picture of the house and put their little movie logo in it so that I could slide it and fit it right up into the top. I also took inside the pieces here, I printed out scenes from the movie to fill as background for the cute little display pieces. So this one is just really, really special. This is video from the girls' trip in the mountains in October. You've probably seen a couple little bits and pieces of this that I've shared. And this was a special project that I had all of us do. Real simple. You're just taking paint, you're painting your hand, making sure you've got a nice thick coat of paint on your hand, and then pressing it down onto this canvas. This is how it looked when it was all done. I picked these flowers up at Michael's. I got them in all different colors. And I had somebody nearby me print that out on their Cricut machine. The grass pieces I got from Hobby Lobby. And what I did, instead of just putting the plastic like grass pieces on the bottom, I thought, well, I need to kind of have something in the background. So I took 2 or 3 different shades of green, mixed them all together, and then kind of drew on the grass as a background layer, let that dry. Then I went back to the flowers and hot glued them on. Once those were done, it was time to put the saying on, which I just thought was so sweet. With the Cricut, when you get a printout like this, you peel off the back, you put this down, and then you use a little scraper tool like I have, or the edge of a credit card, anything like that works. And then you just start rubbing on it to press the letters down. This was kind of another tedious part of this, was me taking the tin snips and going through, because I wanted the tops of the grass. Of course, the top looks like a blade of grass as it gets skinnier and more pointed, right? And once I cut them, then it was a matter of securing them to the canvas. And yes, this is exactly how I did it. I took the hot glue. I would do 2 or 3 strips here at a time. You can't work, but with hot glue so long before it'll dry on you and cool off. And so I had to do just a little bit at a time, and then each of these little grass blades, we'll call them, were put on individually. I knew the bottom of it needed something where the grass is. I had this burlap ribbon that I think I'd also got from Dollar Tree. You don't have to spend a lot to get really cute crafts. But I thought this would be perfect at the bottom. So I wrapped it around the bottom, and then I took some leftover twine that I had and put a cute little bow on it. Really, this is just probably one of the cutest things that I think I've ever made, and also one of the most heartfelt. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed seeing the goodies that I made. I have to say, I think my favorite one is probably the canvas that I made with my friend's handprints on it and turning it into flowers and all that. I had a lot of fun thinking that one up. And I know my friends, when I was doing it, it's probably like, why is she making us do this with our hands? Like we're 5 years old. But but I knew what I saw in my head, and it was an awesome vision. And I'm glad that it turned out like I imagined it. So I think that was my favorite one. And I think my next favorite one is probably the little Easter wreath. That was something else that I've had those things for well over a year, and I just never sat down and finally started playing with it to put it together. And I was really happy with that. I thought that turned out really cute. Do you have any projects that you've got going on? Are you a crafter? Do you like sitting down and doing this? Maybe you have a particular kind that you like working on. I would love to hear about it in the comments. And in fact, this is a good time to remind you, just always like the video, leave a comment if you feel like it. Everybody, when you watch a video here on YouTube, the reason that everybody is like, oh, please leave a comment and please like everything, is because if people don't do that, then YouTube tends to ignore you. And that means YouTube then doesn't share your video. When you're watching a video and it gives you the other ones, like suggested videos, well, if your video doesn't get enough interaction, it won't show up over there. So it doesn't get shown to any new people or anything like that. And honestly, from this side, it's kind of frustrating to for it to be like that, but I guess in our computer generated world with all these algorithms, I think that's just how that is. So nonetheless, if you would remember and be so kind to I think it's like the little thumbs up or whatever, and leave a comment if you feel like it. I always respond to comments, and I had done that from the beginning, and I don't see that changing. I think that that's very important. If you take the time to say something to me, it's important for me to reply back to that. You know, as I've said, you're not just a number, and so I appreciate all comments and likes and everything. Make sure you're subscribed, of course. Make sure that you have gone. Once you click subscribe, then you have to go back to like the little bell and you click all, and that way every time I post a video, a new one like this, it'll pop up and it'll let you know without you having to go directly to my page. I know, it's a little convoluted, isn't it? Anyway, regardless, thank you so much for watching. As always, time is precious. Carpe diem. Seize the day. I'll see you next time.